Welcome back to Review the Pay-Per-View. We're here with Fully Loaded 2000. I usually post these Friday. Revolution's really been kicking my ass and messing up my whole schedule. So, let's get into it. First off, we had TNA, Test, Albert, and Trish versus the Hardys, Matt, Jeff, and Lita. This was a fun match for what it was. A little back and forth from Matt and Albert till we got a hot tag from Jeff taking out Test. And then we would have Trish versus Matt Hardy for a little bit until Lita gets tagged in because Lita's been feuding with Trish. But, Trish doesn't want to fight Lita, so she would tag in Albert, and Albert would just chase her around the ring for some reason. And then, of course, the Hardys would save her. Jeff would do a move on Test, but he would reverse it into a pop-up powerbomb, which looked pretty fantastic. Lita would take out both Test and Albert, but then Albert would elbow her in the back, and then Test would give her a powerbomb. Trish gets in, try to take advantage of injured Lita, but Lita would reverse and hit a superplex, then a moonsault for the win for the Hardys. But Test, Albert, and Trish would attack the Hardys at the end of the match, whipping Lita with a belt, 2.5 stars. Next up was Taz versus Al Snow. Al Snow would really be dominating Taz throughout this entire match. Taz would reverse Al Snow, jumping over him and turning it into an Alabama Slam for a short comeback. But Taz would hit a Taz mission for the win, 2 stars. Nothing really too crazy about this. The European title was on the line. Eddie Guerrero with China versus Perry Saturn with Terry. So Eddie's our champion, and they came out first. So while Perry was coming out, China would, charge the stage, going after Terry. So she would slap Perry out of the way, but he didn't take that kindly, so he would hit her, and Eddie would be dominating the match for him abusing China. Hurricanrana from Eddie to Perry, and Perry went outside and he was getting his ass beat by China. She was just throwing him around and everything, and of course while Eddie was distracting the ref. Perry Saturn was on the top rope trying to get ready for his elbow, but Eddie would drop kick Perry to the outside, and he would strike China onto the announce table, and the table would break. Then he would hit a diving elbow to Eddie for the win, making him the new European champion. This was a 3-star match. It was fun. The tag team titles were on the line. Edge and Christian are champions versus the Acolytes, Farouk and Bradshaw. So this was a 1.5 star. Throughout the night, Christian was pretending he was sick, pretending to throw up, but Mick Foley saw that it was a lie, so they went to go fight. Before the match started, Bradshaw would cut a promo to Edge and Christian because they're in Dallas, and Bradshaw's from Texas, so you know how that is. But at the end of the day, Edge would hit Farouk with the titles, so they get DQ'd. Acolytes win, Edge and Christian keep the titles. Intercontinental Championship was on the line. Val Venus with Trish versus Rikishi, as JR would say. The match will start off with Val Venus just going straight for the top, try to get out of the cage, but of course Rikishi would just grab him and bring him down, and then he just start throwing him on the cage walls. I don't think I've seen this before, or I just don't remember, but Rikishi was getting ready to do the sting face to Val Venus, and as he was getting closer, Val Venus would low blow Rikishi, stopping him, from doing it. After a bonsai drop to Val Venus, Rikishi would try to leave through the door, but Trish Stratus would slam the door in his face. And Lita will come out with a belt and start whipping Trish, getting her out of there, so, it could be even playing field. Rikishi climbs the cage, looks up to the crowd, and then dives from the top of the cage onto Val Venus. So wild. After that, Rikishi starts crawling to the cage door opens, and Taz grabs the cameraman's camera and smacks him in the head, so he's out. Then Val Venus was able to get the pin from Taz's help. So apparently that's how Rikishi lost his title, was because Taz grabbed the cameraman and he grabbed the camera from the cameraman and knocked out Rikishi. So he did it again. So this was pretty much a 2.5 star match. It could have been better. Speaking of could have been better, we had Kurt Angle versus The Undertaker. So throughout the night, Taker was just chasing Kurt Angle on his bike, or just try to kick his ass before the match. And Kurt Angle would get a little advantage of, by taking out his leg with a wrench. When the match comes, and mid-entrance for Kurt Angle, Undertaker would come from behind and start attacking him, leading into the crowd, as usual. This match would be full Undertaker, besides maybe a few ankle locks, and really Kurt Angle focusing on the knee of The Undertaker. But chokeslam last ride for the win, 2 stars. Next we had Triple H versus Chris Jericho in a last man standing. Of course, like all these matches, usually they start on the outside brawl, and Triple H would remove Chris Jericho's bandages around his waist, really focusing on the body at the abdomen of Jericho. Stephanie would get a few slaps to Jericho, and Triple H would hit a suplex to Jericho on the ramp. Triple H would have Chris Jericho in a sleeper, and for a count of 9. So he was getting pretty much tired of it, so he went outside, grabbed the chair, started, attacking the ribs and the back of Chris Jericho with said chair. Chris Jericho would come back with a low blow, and then grab the chair and smack Triple H in the skull, busted him wide open. He would do a running bulldog to Triple H onto the chair, looked nasty. On the outside, they would both grab a monitor from the commentator's table and then just smack each other in the heads, both getting knocked down. They'll both get back up. Later on, Jericho would hit the wall to Triple H, but it's a last man standing, so the pinning doesn't really matter. The tapping doesn't really matter. Stephanie would get in, try to break it up, but Chris Jericho would put her in the walls as well. Coming near the end of the match, so they did a back suplex onto the announce table, the commentator's table. Triple H got up at 9, Jericho gets counted out at 10, and then right after the 10, Triple H just falls. He's just so exhausted. 3.5 stars. It was fantastic. Great, great little back and forth. And for the main event, the WWF title was on the line. Our champion, The Rock, versus he who shall not be named, Chris Benoit. Mick Foley was a commissioner at the time, and he said if Rock gets DQ'd, he will lose the title to Chris Benoit. Start of the match, Shane would really distract The Rock, while Chris Benoit would try to come from behind, but the advantage wouldn't work, and The Rock would take control. Chris would later on does come back, really working the legs of The Rock, a little sharpshooter here and there. Throughout the match, Shane McMahon would be on ringside for Chris Benoit, and either he was distracting the ref for Chris Benoit to do something, or Chris would be distracting the ref and Shane would be hitting The Rock. People's elbow for a 2, but Shane McMahon would come in the ring with a chair, smack the ref from behind, and the ref didn't see who did it. So Rock has Chris Benoit in the crossface. The ref calls for the bell. Rock thinks he won, but he actually DQ'd The Rock, making Chris Benoit the winner and the new WWF champion. Rocky's eyes are like just wide open. He's like, what? I didn't do it, So they give Benoit the bell. He's walking out of the arena. Mick Foley comes out, the commissioner. He's like, I said Rock can get DQ'd, and if he loses, he loses the title. He's like, well, I didn't see a DQ. So the match resets. Benoit's in control for a little bit. But at the end of the day, rock bottom for the win. 3.5 stars. I loved it just because of the ending. And that was Fully Loaded. If you want to go back and watch it, I say just probably watch the main event, maybe the last man standing match. But I'll try to keep on, every Friday. I'm trying, just be getting out of work late. And as always, I'll see you back on the Rewind.